Hey guys, Chris from Provo Beast Audio Installation, and today we're working on a Toyota Avalon. This is the 2005 through 2012 model. This model can be a little bit tricky because the factory radio is integrated with the HVAC controls, so we'll show you how to do that. But we're going to be installing this Pioneer Carplay unit. Within this install, we're going to show you how to remove the factory radio, get everything wired up, get the HVAC controls also working with the new radio, and reinstallation. Provo Beast Audio Installation channel is sponsored by NVX and Sonic Electronics. Get 10% off all speakers, amplifiers, wiring kits, and more with coupon code PBAI at NVX. Also get 5% off all car audio components at Sonic Electronics with coupon code ProvoBeast. Now, some of the parts that we're going to be using, of course, we're using this NEX model from Pioneer with CarPlay, but in addition to it, you're going to see other parts we're going to be doing over the course of a few videos. But we're going to use a steering wheel control module. We have volume controls on our steering wheel, so we're going to use the Access ASWC1 to retain those. We have the factory radio relocation kit. Now we cannot completely omit the factory radio in our install, but this kit allows you to put that in the trunk somewhere, and the reasoning behind it is because the HVAC controls in the display in their center console area still has to work with the factory radio. So we'll show you how this is used. Essentially, it's a lot of cable that will keep that radio in the trunk. We have a dash kit as well. This dash kit allows us to really insert the new radio in the factory location. And then with the install, since we're doing a Pioneer unit, we have a micro bypass. We'll show you how to install one of these in case you have a Pioneer radio, so video playback works while in motion. And then since the aux and USB inputs are on the back of the radio, we're using this aux USB relocation kit by Rary, I think. Don't know how to really pronounce that, but in a separate video we're doing a backup camera, but some of those elements will be still included in this video because we'll have to run this behind the radio before we button up the radio. And like I said, in another video we're going to do speakers as well, so check that on out. So we have our parts essentially all here for this install. This is the Metra 70-8215. This is Metra Access ASWC1, and then this is the Metra 8215S, S is in silver. So let's go ahead and get the factory radio and go from there. Alright, so as we prep to get this radio out from the dash cavity itself, there's a couple other components that we have to remove to get to it. Now, I don't know if you can see from the camera angle, but on the left-hand side, it's either silver or this is kind of that wood mahogany look. There's that little trim piece that kind of looks like this on this side. It essentially has to pop out because we have to remove this little center piece around the steering column because it exposes clips that allows the center dash bezel to come on out, if that makes sense. So we have to remove this, make sure your door is open. It's a little easier to do so, and using a panel tool, you can get back up behind and pop that on out. Now, take your time as you remove these, just because you don't want to break anything. They do pop out pretty easily, and as you can see, it's just 2 clips. So that's out of the way. Now, still no bolts or screws or anything, still more clips. So using your panel tool, you can get back up behind and kind of pop it, use your fingers a little bit. Really take your time. There's really no need to rush this. This little center portion around your key ring will pop on out. Don't worry about that. Just kind of pop it loose. Like I said, they come on out. Nice thing is with Toyotas, generally everything is held on with clips. Panel tools are super easy to use. Once that's out of the way, you can kind of manipulate it a little bit. It's up to you if you want to go ahead and pull this out, but you really don't need to. You can kind of just leave it there because that now gives us the space we need to get back up behind. Now, using this panel tool, we can continue on. Just kind of work it loose up and around the radio. And there's going to be 2 harnesses, or a few of them on the back, depending on your model. And what we're going to do is just try to guide this on out. That's out of the way. Just so we don't have to take apart more than we have to. All right. Now, from where the camera is, you may not be able to see what I'm going to be doing. But as we get this kind of pulled on out, that allows you to get access to 2 harnesses. Do it on both sides. And I'll show you back behind this. So that's on out. Flipping this around. There was a harness here in the center, and it was held on with 2 little clips so the wire doesn't get in the way. Now at this point here in the car, you can't see from your angle, but there's 2 10mm bolts. You'll want to go ahead and remove those. Now we have 10mm socket. So we're going to go ahead and pull those on out. Got a little plug. Now you'll have an assortment of inputs on the back of the radio, so you want to go ahead and unplug those harnesses. Just like so. Now unfortunately you can't get rid of this, since this display still relies on this radio, and the harness we purchased allows us to still keep the basic functions of this radio, but relocate it in a different area because our new Pioneer radio is going to go here in the dash cavity. So keep that in mind, keep this on the side. Okay, so we have our main harness relocation kit. In addition to this harness, this will also allow us to wire in our new aftermarket radio. But you'll see that this is quite a long cable. Again, the reasoning behind it is this is going to allow us to keep our display above our radio working when we replace the radio. And this end will plug back into our factory radio relocated in the trunk area. And then the other end of this plugs into, it's kind of like a traditional harness plug, but this will plug into the car's actual harness itself. And these portions will wire up to our new aftermarket radio wiring harness. This end wires into our aftermarket Pioneer color for color. Okay, as we begin wiring our Pioneer radio harness to our other harness colors, before we just start matching colors together, stripping both ends and using butt connectors, we have a relay, a micro bypass relay. It's a double pulse relay allowing video playback to work while in motion. Additionally, since we have steering wheel volume controls, which we also want to retain, there's a couple of wires that we'll need to wire into this harness as well, and in the car specifically, to keep those steering wheel controls working with this Pioneer. So we're going to pull this open as well. Alright, so what we went ahead and just completed here is we showed you in the previous segment our 2 main wiring harnesses, and what we did is we stripped both ends and just matched colors up, color for color, using butt connectors. Now, if you're not a fan of butt connectors, there's many other wiring alternatives, whether it's crimp caps or soldering and using heat shrink. If you're good at it, those are great alternatives as well. But connect all your wires color for color to this long aftermarket T-harness that came with the kit. This ASWC one needs to raw power and ground, so I just twisted those into those connections as well, as you can kind of see there. And then the wires that we'll need for this are the black, green, and then the green-orange wire. Everything else you can actually just cap off, and then this end will go into our Pioneer. Now, if you're installing something other than a Pioneer or a Sony, you may need the ASWC1's adapter, which plugs into there, and then this end will go to a designated wire on your radio. But check with the instructions of your radio, and then also check with Access. They'll walk you through the whole process of how to get this programmed. So essentially, our wiring is about done. At this point, we're going to head over to the car after we clean up the wiring and begin getting everything installed. Okay, so here in the dash cavity, what we've done is started to run our nice wiring harness. This is everything that will plug into our harnesses here. In addition, we've also run our backup camera wire since the radio is out. Since we're running the video feed wire from the camera in the rear to the camera input on the radio, we're going to run this along with our main wiring harness. And what we've done is this just pops on down. So open your glove box, push in the sides, just like that. It comes on down. So you have access to run all the wiring from up underneath. And then comes right down here. What we're going to do is go along the kick panels on the passenger side of the car, working our way to the trunk area. Panel tool.
See this, I just tucked this right down up underneath so I can tuck this wire back behind the seat. And I just felt my hand down where I take the wire through. There it is. We're gonna put our factory radio back in this little cavity because when the carpet's back up, it's out of the way and you won't even see it there. So that's probably the best place to put it. We have our radio here, and on the back here, this will plug to that harness, and this one will plug into that harness. So that will hide back in this cavity. All right, so let's go ahead and prep the dash kit. Wiring instructions here. How to remove the radio, which is super helpful in case you didn't have my video. Our dash bezel, cool thing is, it'll look pretty dang good in that kit. Mounting brackets for a radio. Now you're welcome to use the mounting brackets. I'm gonna pop these guys on out. There's just 4 clips on each side. Set that off to the side. Same thing with the other side. There's just these little teeny clips. All right, so that's all out. Now the kit instruction does require you to cut that. You're able to shave instead of cut it in case you want to replace the radio down the road or put the factory radio back in. You may not want to cut that completely out, so you're welcome to modify it or cut it completely out just so this new kit will pop into place and it screws into those 4 factory bolt hole locations. Okay, so what we did is we just filed using kind of an aggressive file here. Rather than cut that whole support beam out, this gives us a little bit more structure, and we filed out where that corner would sit, just so we keep the original bracket here. And on the front, looks great. All right, so here we are in the point of this install. Now we got our main wiring harness that we wired up on the bench. What we did is, because it came with those 3 plugs, we plugged them right into the factory harnesses, just like that. Remember, this end goes all the way back to the trunk of the car, because this end retains the screen information. Without it, this would be blank. It wouldn't show anything. It would just be solid blue. So you'll need that. The other end of our harness that plugged into our radio, we went ahead and plugged that in. Now remember, our brain to our steering wheel controls, this ASWC1 by Access. We plugged in the brain to the harness, and remember those 2 wires that we needed to plug into the car. Well, we're ready to plug those in. Now fortunately, on this main harness, which is your info harness for your screen, there's 2 wires that come off it. We need to cut those wires, so we've cut those, and those are the black-white and the black-yellow wire, and we've stripped those and connected those in, and our green-yellow connects into our black-white, and our green-black connects into our black-yellow. We plugged in the 3.5mm wire to the back of our radio here into the WR on the back of the radio. Now, in case you don't have this connection, the kit also comes with its own harness here. So if you, unfortunately, if you use this harness and not the one that came, that relocates the radio to the trunk, and this won't work. So this really is only used if you don't care about the screen up above. At this point, we have plugged everything in. We plugged the radio in the trunk in as well. Let's go ahead and give this a test. So our display up above is working okay. That's good. We'll show you that here in a minute. So we know that the radio in the trunk is responding to the screen up above. Our radio, our aftermarket radio, is booted up, which we know that's great too, because that's working as well. Our temperature controls and our steering wheel controls are working up on our new radio, which is perfect. All right, so next thing here, we want to utilize the USB and aux inputs on the back of the radio, and like we said at the beginning, what we purchased is this flush mount adapter, and these happen to be the same size as your cigarette lighter area. And what we're going to do is pop out that factory one and insert this in its place. We're going to use this, and this will also support Apple CarPlay. So we're going to replace the factory cigarette lighter with this guy instead. So let's go ahead and get this popped on out so we can get that inserted. This guy pops off with clips as well, kind of giving you a little more space. This center portion. Okay, so just kind of give you a little better view. With this out of the way, I disconnected the harness and it gave me this hole, and this is a perfect place for our USB and aux input. It's out of the way and they can put the cables in this little pocket and close it. So nice and concealed, keeps the look really clean. Now some of you may not want to do this, and that's totally fine. You can run a USB and aux cable into the glove box or another location if that works better for you. Okay, so we went ahead, and since we popped the factory cigarette lighter port out, we inserted, that was a little nut, replacing that so it looks nice and clean, easy to get to. We're not super worried about losing that cigarette lighter port because there's one actually right in the glove box as well, in the center glove box. And we ran our USB and our aux cable up, which we'll plug in the back of the radio. Okay, so we ran our Bluetooth mic. We just kind of fed it through. This little panel pops down just enough where you're able to run it right up underneath. And then I just took the wire up in the seal, back behind here, all the way up, and perched our little mic right there on the A-pillar. Now make sure you stay out of the way of the deploy area of the airbag, just so you're safe. But that's a good location to get that mounted. So, okay, so we went ahead and mounted our radio in the back of the car. We had to be very creative. Here comes our bypass harness. And what we did here to get this to mount, we actually had one of these straps laying around. Now you can also use back strapping as well, just this metal strapping. We strapped one to the factory bolt hold on one side of the radio, and then we used, see if I can get a good shot of that in there, that L bracket that looks just like that. And then this happened to be a threaded hole, and we found a bolt that fits that. And so this radio is nice and mounted. It's not touching the wall here, and everything's zip tied out of the way, so that'll sit back behind that panel, no problem. Okay, there you go. For the radio install, you wouldn't even know the radio was there. Pretty slick. Let's do a final test up front. So dash is all back together. Here's our aux USB input down below. Looks super, super nice and clean. That worked out great. So, key there. Pioneer boots up, perfect. So does our screen. We have our temperature outside plus our gas mileage and trip time. Perfect. Now, let's hit auto to make sure our HVAC controls work, and they do. Off. Perfect. And then let's go to the radio. Oh, you get static, but it's okay. Alright. Perfect. Alright, that's it for the install. If you have any questions about this install, just go and post a comment below. Thanks guys for watching the channel. Hit that like button on this video, and we will certainly see you in the next video.